everyone. Today we will talk about early kingdoms. In previous video we have read about early kingdoms. Early kingdoms were divided into two categories, Janpads and Mahajanpads. Mahajanpad were further divided into two categories, republics and monarchies. Now in this video we will talk about monarchies in the brief. So, before starting the video, we should revise what is monarchies. Monarchies, Mahajanpad, ruled by the king. The king was very powerful. He had a large army and many sources of revenue. The kingship was hereditary. Maghada and Avanti were the greatest example of this kingdom. In simple words, we could say monarchies Mahajanpad was the Mahajanpads where king was the ruler and he was taking the care of all his kingdom and he was taking decisions. Let's talk about sources of revenue of king. The main sources of revenue of king was taxation. King appointed his officer to collect tax from the common people like farmers, craftsmen, potters, weavers, etc. Taxes paid by him in form of cash or by offering free services to king. People has to pay taxes on buying and selling of goods also. Most of the people were farmers, so agriculture was the main source of revenue. The farmer gave 1/6 of their produce to king. This was called bhaga, bhag, or share to produce. In simple words, we could say the total production, 1/6 part of total production of farmer had to give to king as a tax, which is known as bhaga, bhag, or share of produce. There were other sources of revenue. Craftsmen such as carpenters, potters, weavers paid taxes either in cash or by offering free services to king. There were also taxes on buying and selling of the goods. Why did the king take taxes? What was the reason behind it? King usually kept large army for their protection, which required high amount of money. For salaried them, for feeding animals, for maintaining animals, he needed a huge amount of money. Therefore, king began to collect taxes on regular basis from common people. Let's talk about changes. Changes took place during this era. First, we will talk about towns. Villages that grew in size become towns. Towns also grew around center of trade and craft. Ujjaini, Vaishali, Ayodhya were some important towns of this period. Now let's talk about trade. Trade got a boost during this period due to introduction of money. Until this time, trade had been carried through barter system. Now, coins of silver and copper began to be used. This led to an increase in trade. Inland trade was brisk. Goods were sent far and wide. Bhimsara, the king of Magad, built roads and bridges throughout his kingdom, which encouraged trade. Beside land routes, trade was carried out by sea routes also. The main articles traded were silk, perfume, ivory. Now, let's talk about the society of that time. The people were grouped into varnas. There were four varnas: Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra. These varnas were decided on the basis of birth. This means that if person was born in Brahmin family, that person would automatically become Brahman. If a person was born in Vaishya family, that person would automatically become Vaishya. If a person was born in Shudra family, that person would automatically become Shudra. And people of different varna performed different tasks. Now, let's talk about tasks or occupation of different varnas. Brahman were expected to teach the Vedas and perform religious rituals, whereas Kshatriya were warriors and fought wars. Vaishya were involved in trade and agriculture. But Shudra were serving other three groups. They were considered as untouchable. They were not having a particular task to perform. They were serving as a servant of about three groups. For Brahmins, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudras were serving as a servant. Now, find, think, and answer. What kind of work did the untouchables do? Think upon this and answer. Now, it's a time to know more. Society was grouped into varnas: Brahmins, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra. Varnas were decided on the basis of birth, and professionals were decided according to varnas. These professions become hereditary. The important two regions of these periods were Maghada and Vajji. Maghada adopted monarchy Mahajanpad. Vajji was Republic Mahajanpad. Now let's talk about Maghada. Maghada was a monarchy which was ruled by king. It was very powerful Mahajanpad of that era. What was the reason behind the development of Maghada? Let's talk about that. Maghada was located in Gangetic Basin, where soil was fertile. It has forests which provided large number of timber and elephants to Maghada. Timber was used in making houses, forts, etc. and elephants were used in army. Maghada had a large amount of iron, which was used in making weapons and tools of wars. Maghada was protected by nature. So overall we could say the location of Maghada was helpful for the development of Maghada. Nature blessed Maghada with its blessing. Now let's talk about Vajji. The Vajji were confederation of many clans. There were no kings. The decisions were taken by people themselves. Vajji were the famous and powerful Republican Mahajanpat of that time. Maghada was most important example of monarchic Mahajanpat, and Vajji was important example of Republic Mahajanpat. Now it's the time to sum up the things. The previous era was divided into two parts, Janpads and Mahajanpads. Janpads and Mahajanpads were either republic or monarchy. Monarchical Mahajanpad was ruled by king. There were many sources of revenue. In this era, over and overseas trade proposed. Society was divided into four varnas: Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, and each varna was performing different tasks. Maghada was powerful monarchic. It was very powerful because of various factors. Lichavis service performed the most powerful republic. वाहिगुरु जी का खालसा, वाहिगुरु जी की फतेह. Thank you. Have a nice day.